Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Midnight Snack Podcast. I am your host, Chris Calix. Thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 2 is finally here, and I am so excited for this episode, guys. As you do know, episode 2 was postponed a little bit, but I wanted to get this out of the way straight away. The response from episode 1 was absolutely phenomenal, and I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. The response was incredible, and that meant so much to me, guys. Josh was an absolute legend for stopping by and having a conversation with us. It was absolutely phenomenal. And now we move on to episode 2, and I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm super happy that you're able to make it, man. Mr. Christian McIntosh. How are you, mate?
I can only apologise.
No, man. I'm so super excited for this episode, man. Now, you know the deal. It wouldn't be the Midnight Snack Podcast without a Midnight Snack. So if you'd like to show us what you've brought, man.
I have brought 2 packages of Oreos.
Top shelf.
Yes.
Top shelf.
Yes, these cost me $2.18. So I brought Oreos because generally my partner and I, we don't keep a lot of snacky sort of stuff in the house. We cook our own meals nowadays.
Yeah.
But normally we always have Oreos.
There's a pack of Oreos laying around.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I didn't eat it last night like Josh did.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, I'm a professional. But
shots fired.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm just kidding, Josh. I love you.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, Oreos are one of those comfort foods. They've been around since I was very young.
So let's get this out of the way, man. Straight down to the nitty gritty. Are you a twist and lick guy?
I remember the ads.
Yeah.
Because those ads came out when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And yes, I do remember them. I remember one of my earliest memories of that ad specifically is my father being absolutely horrified at the idea of a dog drinking milk.
Yep.
So I'm not a twist and lick guy. I'm more of a let's see how many Oreos I can fit in my mouth at one point. Yeah. It's one of those situations, one of those deals.
Yeah, absolutely, man. At no point do you dunk them in plain milk. Right?
No, because it gives off the idea that you would drink an entire glass of milk.
Right.
With nothing but cookie residue
I'm
in
so
it.
glad we covered this earlier. Now, moving on from the snack, man, of course, that is just the opener. You, my friend, are a musician, and you have been making some absolute bangers of late, performing all over Rockhampton. I can't remember a time where you're not booked for a show, and when you're not performing, you're teaching and educating, and of course, you were studying. So let's start there, man. I want to jump right at the very start, and we'll work our way through.
Right.
Where did music start for you, man?
Music started for me very much in my family.
Right.
So my mother was a church choir girl in Maryborough in the 60s and 70s, and she has an amazing voice, an angelic voice.
Yeah.
My father is a bass player.
Right.
He'll never say it himself, but every person in my family, when he picks up a bass, is absolutely in awe of this guy.
Yeah.
And myself and my 2 brothers, we all play music together most times. So music has been a very integral part of our family and our family dynamic. It was what kind of kept us together.
Right.
You know, at the times when you're shitty with your parents and things like that, you could always escape and start playing music.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to ask you this question because I put the same thing on Josh. Was music something, or not so much just music in general, but playing instruments and stuff like that, was that something that came naturally to you, or was that something that you developed, something that you put the time and effort into, or was that something you feel you had?
No, it is and it isn't. I first started on the saxophone when I was 6. And as much as I loved it, I didn't like practicing. And I was good enough from my saxophone lessons to just get by with it. I gave the saxophone up when I was about 13 because at that point I was playing the guitar for about 3 years.
Okay.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I was playing the guitar for about 3 years. And I just had no need for a saxophone anymore. My brother, who lives in Sydney, Philip, shout out to Philip.
Yeah.
He asked for the saxophone back.
Yeah.
And I went, yeah, absolutely. I've got a ton of guitars hanging around the house.
Right.
You know, it's something to always play on. So yeah, from then on, from about 13 onwards to now, so for the last 13 years of my life, Christ, I'm old, has just been the guitar and stringed instruments.
Right. Is the saxophone something that you could still pick up and play?
Absolutely not. I did try. One of the instrumental music teachers at the school that I teach at gave me his tenor saxophone to play.
Right.
And I think I'd only played one a few times in like the high school band.
Yeah.
When I was younger, and I always remember having a good time on it. But yeah, it was never. It didn't work out very well. I didn't know how to hold my mouth anymore or anything like that. Because I haven't played it in 13 years. You know? But when it comes to being naturally good at it, not really. Right. The guitar was something that I picked up very quickly. I was playing a lot of chords and I was playing a lot of rhythm. Rhythm is something that was taught to us from very, very young, singing in choirs and things like that. So rhythm was very important. We could hear a beat and we could follow it.
Yeah.
But the guitar itself, I had to work a lot on.
Right.
It was like any spare chance that I got, I was in my room playing the guitar, or I was playing the guitar with Dad, and I was you know, having a jam out with the family sessions and our family friends and stuff.
So you said like a lot of it came from you were in choirs and stuff like that and school bands and all those sorts of things. When it came to music, was the performing side of things something that was always present for your music per se, or was it more so that this was something you were interested in for, let's say, just the career of writing music, performing music? Which avenue do you think you were pushed towards, and do you think that the way that you were portraying music when you were younger had an effect on that decision?
Now, that's an interesting one, because I'd grown up watching my dad in bands.
Right.
And I'd grown up watching my brothers in bands. Like, my brothers are 9 and 7 years older than me, so there's a bit of a gap there.
Yep.
I always remember going to their school concerts and things like that. Music was something that was never pushed or forced upon us. Right. But it was always supported.
Yeah.
So my father being as musically inclined as he is, and my mother being as musically inclined as she is, have always supported me in my decisions. You know, when it comes to playing music, they've always gone, yep, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You know, in order to pursue that dream that I've had since I was very young. Yeah. You know, I knew when I was about 14 or 15 that I wanted to play in bands. Right. And I wanted to play music. It didn't matter whether it was to 1,000 people or to one person. I just wanted to play music.
Yeah. So I've got to ask them, because you have a really good dynamic with the fact that I've seen you perform live by yourself, and you can fill a room and really fill a room by yourself.
It was a very successful night last night.
Last night was phenomenal, by the way. And I'd already spoken to you about that after work last night, but phenomenal. But this is the point I wanted to make. I've seen you fill a room by yourself, right? And I've also seen the videos of you performing with your band where you guys absolutely fill the room as a group. And that dynamic is so great because, like I said, you can sit on a stool with a guitar and entertain an entire room for, 3 hours or whatever it is that you usually play. But then you can also go on stage with a number of other guys that you play with and do the exact same thing. Do you ever find that there is a sway to one or the other?
It's always more fun playing with other people.
Right.
Not just in music. You learn that as a kid. It's always more fun having your friends around.
Yeah.
So when it comes to playing in bands, either being the Zach Cross band, where I'm the rhythm guitarist and co-lead singer of, or whether I'm the front man for my band, the 16s, or just playing with Josh, it's always so much more fun playing music with everybody else than sitting on my own at the go. Now, I love doing that.
Yeah, of course.
It's one of my, it's a dream coming true.
Yeah.
Being able to perform music to people who want to hear it is huge. But playing with the bands, I learned very, very young, listening to all these different kinds of music, things like harmony and certain guitar lines and stuff like that, if there's two acoustic guitars playing on stage, those fill out music far more than anything else. And I've always felt, as a musician, the most important, appendage that you have as a musician is never your hands.
Right.
It's always your ears.
Yep.
And whatever to me is pleasing for the ear, so far I haven't been wrong yet.
Yeah.
So if I'm filling out with Josh at the Goat, for example, I'm always trying to sing a harmony to back him up, because he's such a phenomenal singer and he's got a lot more frontman elements than I do. I've always loved sitting in the background. Never been one for the center of attention.
Right.
I guess it all started when... no.
But no, it's funny, man, because I guess it's the same way that I approach it with Josh too. And like, I've made this very clear. This is very common knowledge. I am a massive fan of both you and Josh. And that has been very common knowledge for quite some time. Hence why you are a guest on the podcast. But...
And not just because I begged you.
Yeah, exactly. But no, the thing is, man, the reason I asked that is because I can see that, like I said, you as a solo artist, people would pay to see. But you as a band member, people would pay to see. And the reason I said, is there one or the other you sway to? Is it's not so much like, do you rather the spotlight on you, or do you mind taking a back seat sometimes? It's more so of, with this whole music career that you have in mind, and let's not say that it's music and music only, right? Because you do a number of things that are music related. We'll cover that shortly. But I've always wanted to really gauge whether someone is destined to be a solo artist, or if that idea of the tour life with friends and bandmates who eventually become family, which path do you see yourself going down?
I've always seen myself as part of a unit.
Right.
Oh, I beg your pardon again. It's always been me with someone else.
Right.
Because that's how I prefer it. I'm not one to say, it's such a shame that I've always been lumped in with other people.
Right.
It's never the case.
Right.
I've always preferred to share that time on stage with someone else.
Yep.
Whoever I can share it with, be them an audience member or a collaborator.
Yeah.
Which is why I find that, the idea of tour life and stuff like that, which the Zach Cross Band got a little bit of a taste of during Beef Week, the very early morning get-ups and the driving for 6 hours on 2 hours of sleep to play a 4-hour show, packing up a $50,000 worth of equipment into a $5,000 car to pay a $50 gig type of stuff.
Yeah.
That has always been in my head, is like, this is what I'm happy doing.
Right.
Because when I'm doing that, it's not just me against the world.
Right.
You're part of a unit, you're part of a cohesive team.
Yep.
And that is something that, yes, we've worked very hard for over the last few years, starting out with myself and Zach, and then moving into gaining other band members and turning ourselves into not just a country outfit, we're a rock and roll band.
Right.
That has been probably one of the most fulfilling journeys that I've ever been on.
Yep.
If I were to do that as a solo artist, I think when it comes to me being a frontman, like in my band, the 16s, we used to play at the Strand a lot.
Yep.
Shout out to Benny Crowley and Joey O'Shaughnessy, my absolute boys. We worked as a cohesive team. I wasn't the sort of frontman that would take over and try and do everything. At least I hope that was the case.
Yeah.
It was always about being a team, being a unit. I find that when I listen to those boys play, I'm so much more enamored by that than just listening to myself.
Right.
And I don't think anybody can really listen to themselves for any extended period of time.
I agree with you on that, mate. I agree with you on that. So let's touch on that for a little bit, because like you said, you have quite a number of projects under your belt, right? At what point did that start to happen? When was the point where you were like, okay, yeah, no, I enjoy playing with you guys. We'll make this a group. We'll perform as a band. And then you go, well, I also have another project that I could do, and we'll make this a band as well. Like, when did that start to really set itself in stone?
It's interesting that you bring that up, actually, because when it comes to myself and Zach, we've been playing music together since we were kids.
Right.
He's very musically inclined. His entire family plays music type of thing as well. Very similar situation to mine, and we grew up together over the last, 22 years. How old am I? 26. So 22 years.
Right.
And we kind of started it just off the cuff.
Yeah.
You know, I was in Rocky at the time. I think I was actually at the Goat.
Right, okay.
And Zach Cross approached me, who I hadn't seen in about a year, and he goes, I've got a gig somewhere, Glenmore Homestead it's called.
Yeah.
He goes, I've got a gig out there. Do you want to come and play on it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. It turned into a weekly thing, and then we started expanding from there. When it comes to the 16s, they were already a unit before I came in.
Right,
They were already a band just seeking a singer, and Joey O'Shaughnessy actually gave me a call and said, can you show up to a rehearsal? We'll play a few songs, get a feeling for it, and then we'll play the Strand. I showed up to the rehearsal. It took me about 5 minutes to find my groove, and then from there it turned into like a year-long thing. We played the Strand all the time. It was one of my favourite gigs to play.
So, did you ever find there was a time where you didn't naturally click with bands?
Once. When I was 18, I was fresh out of high school, and I was studying jazz at uni, and they used to put us together into these little combos for assessments, for our performance assessment. And most of the time, mind you, I was 18 and a little shit.
Yeah.
No, I was a pain in the ass. I thought I was a lot better than I was. But we always helped each other achieve whatever we had to achieve at the time.
Yeah.
So when it came to jazz, I always fit in.
Yeah, okay.
You know, because jazz is one of my first loves musically. I always just managed to fit myself in to the fold.
Yeah.
When it came to the contemporary music side of things, I found myself being able to work with those combos really well.
Yeah.
And even though they were just throw-togethers for, you know, a term or a semester, we were able to work as a unit really, really quickly. But at the end of that year, I was sort of drafted to sing in one of the uni bands as a backup singer. There was 3 blokes and 3 ladies who were all incredible singers,
Right.
Phenomenal vocalists. And I just felt a little bit out of place. We were singing a lot of Irish music, which is something that I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
And we were singing all these Irish songs, and I just found myself struggling a bit more. Not for any skill level reasons. Like, I didn't have imposter syndrome. I knew that I was chosen for a reason.
Yes.
But at the time, there were just things that weren't clicking for me. I couldn't. I've always had an ear for harmony. I get that from singing choirs my whole life.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't hit these specific notes, and I couldn't do the things that they wanted because my ear was doing something else, and my ear was very in tune with contemporary sort of music.
Right.
Whereas at that point in time, I wasn't listening to a lot of Irish music. I didn't know the harmonies. I didn't know any shanties or anything like that.
Okay.
I wasn't singing them constantly.
Yeah.
So I only had a very short period of time with these people, but I felt that they really boosted me.
Right.
In that way, I was able to come up to scratch in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So it was difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
As an 18-year-old with a huge ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once I got to that point and I was able to look at the other people and go, you are not a hindrance to my success. You are part of the reason why I do succeed.
Yep.
That is really what changed my mind and stopped me from going, right, I'm going to be the lead singer in a band, and I'm going to be playing the guitar, and I'm going to be the lead guitarist. I'm going to be John Mayer. I'm going to be Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
It turned me more into, I have to service the song. That is my main goal, no matter what my role is in this band, whether I'm playing the bass, the guitar, anything that I'm playing in this band, even if I'm sitting there on a tambourine. I am in service to that song. Right. And that was the kind of values that I learned.
So I got to ask then, is there a specific role in any of the bands, or let's use all of your projects per se, because you said, you play rhythm guitar and you do backing vocals, but then you're also a lead singer for another project. Is there a role that you think you are more fitting to, or even just a role that you enjoy more? And this, again, is not like, we've covered that this is not ego-based, right? I'm not saying, do you think you are the lead singer and should be the lead singer? I'm saying, do you find that there's a spot that you fit just right? And do you think that that is, as a musician, where you should be, or where you feel more comfortable?
There is. And it's never been the lead singer. I've always listened to songs by Simon and Garfunkel, Hall & Oates, people like that, who have these incredible harmonies in music. And a lot of the singers that I work with, as good as they are, their ears aren't trained to hear harmony the way that mine are. Right. Because I've been doing it since I was, for my entire life. I think I started singing in choirs when I was 4. Right. So that's 22 years of singing not lead vocals. Yeah.
And being surrounded by musically inclined people as well.
Exactly. Incredible musicians, conductors, people who know music better than I probably ever will.
The ins and outs. Yeah.
Those situations make me more inclined to be a backup singer.
Right.
Or like in the Zach Cross band, I'm the co-lead singer. So we both have songs that we sing together. We have songs that we sing separately, and then there'll be songs that Zach sings or I sing, and then he'll come in and, take a verse. I'll take a verse on certain songs, things like that. But I'm always trying to revert to a harmony that I really gel with.
Right.
And that changes all the time.
Yeah, of course.
I'll sit on certain notes that I wouldn't have sit on before.
Yep.
And it works better.
Yep.
So if we ever...
That's the beauty of music, though, isn't it, man? It's the fact that it is never the same. It is always changing. It is forever developing. It is always growing, right? It's always changing. Harmonies are one of those things, and you made some very good examples too. Simon and Garfunkel, artists like that are known for those specific things, right? When you take these voices that alone are good, and you create this sound by merging them and creating this harmony, and they become this amazing, phenomenal outfit, right? Yeah. And you wouldn't know them as separates, right? And we saw this a little bit when the parting of ways happened with certain artists. It just didn't work out the way it was supposed to for them, right?
Like Paul Simon exploded and Art Garfunkel didn't. Right. Because Art Garfunkel, with all due respect to the man, didn't thrive as a soloist, whereas Paul Simon, who granted wrote all of the songs, his career just went nuts. Exactly. Because he was such a good solo artist himself.
Yes.
Having Art Garfunkel there was, it made his music better. He was able to fit in with it. Whereas Art Garfunkel relied upon Paul Simon to create a career out of. Right. And it while he still did amazing things, once again, with all due respect to Art Garfunkel, he is one of my vocal heroes. Yeah. He just didn't go as far as Paul Simon did.
Exactly. And so that was the point I was making. Those were really good examples because, like I said, you have artists who, when you hear them the way that we heard them, right, as Simon and Garfunkel, they are so iconic. And even in today's day and age, with the new generation of music and sound and what it is today, they are still artists that have produced these songs that we will hear on the radio and instantly recognize.
Oh, yeah. Sound of Silence is an absolute classic.
Even now, you've got people like Disturbed covering songs.
Doing one of the best rock covers in the world on that song.
And I'll stand by you every day of the week to agree with you on that.
I never thought... This is just an interesting tidbit, I'm sorry. I never thought I'd like that song because I've grown up with
the Sound of Silence. Yeah, right, yeah.
I never thought I'd like Disturbed version, and then it blew my mind.
That's the thing, man. I have to agree with you. I am one of those people who will love a song in its originality, right? Absolutely love it. And the reason I bring this up is because I've made this point to you a couple of times now. There are times where an artist will cover a song, and it almost drives me away from that.
No.
And not because they do a bad job, but because when it's not done the way that it was, which was the reason I therefore fell in love with it, that interest in it sort of fades for me. It doesn't make me appreciate the original any less, of course, but it then gives it this new life.
It does.
Right? And it starts to veer it off on a different path.
Yeah.
Now, we spoke about stuff like Pop Goes Punk and stuff like that, right?
It's a great album series, that.
But this is the point I was making. Now, I have been listening to your live performances for well on a few months now, right? And I made the comment to you the other night that you had done a rendition of a song that I actually hadn't heard before. And I thought it was phenomenal. I made this very clear to you. I said, by the way, I love this song. If you'd perform it tonight, I would be wrapped. I'm working. I get to also enjoy the music that I like to listen to while I'm working. Yeah. It keeps me focused. It keeps me moving forward. It's also very entertaining. But then, like I said to you, I went home and actually listened to the original to hear what resemblance you had given to the original, or if you were doing it in a rendition of your own and giving it its own life form. I actually enjoy the way you perform it more so than the version of the original, right? And we had this conversation, and I made this point to you, but it was funny that, then we started speaking about Pop Goes Punk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when the cover of Sound of Silence dropped, and I'd first seen it as a live rendition on, it was a late show, I think.
It was either, because I think I know the one you're talking about, it was either Jules Holland. Actually, now that I say it out loud, I don't think it was Jules Holland.
Yeah.
I think it might have been one of the Jimmys.
Yes, I think so too.
Either Fallon or Kimmel.
Yes.
And I think it was Kimmel.
Yeah.
This is what, 2014, 2015, when that song came out. Because it blew me away.
Absolutely. And that was like, at the time too, I think they'd released it as part of an album. I could be wrong there, but I think...
No, they did.
Yeah. So, and I think it was a musical guest performance, and I think it was kind of like, we'll go with this song to really gauge that we are not just this rock band that we've been known for so long, because at the end of the day too, you have someone in the front of that band like David Draymond. I believe so. I could probably butchered that. Yeah. But whose vocals are so strong, right?
I think, sorry to interrupt, but I think his vocal performance of Sound of Silence is on par, if not better, than his vocal performance in Down with the Sickness, which is what solidified him as a giant in rock and roll vocals. Because how he's able to fry, he's doing vocal fries back into, whopping great tenor notes. Up that Freddie Mercury couldn't bloody hit. And then all the way down into a contrabass tone. Those things... His voice doesn't just work like that. Those are the things that he works at.
Absolutely.
And so when you listen to a song like Sound of Silence, where he's going all the way down low and then way up the top, but not even the top of his register goes way higher than that. All the way up to the top of that scale, while still servicing the song.
Yes.
While still taking an original song, which, granted, remember too, with Mariah Carey's, I think it was Mariah Carey's version of Bridge Over Troubled Water, that made people realise that Simon and Garfunkel were not to be fucked with. They were not to be, You know, it was sacred ground. It's like the Beatles.
Yes.
You know, you don't cover the Beatles unless you cover the Beatles the way that they would do it.
Yes, yep.
It took this song, which is a beautiful, beautiful, sad, haunting piece, to just expand on everything that they wanted that song to be at the time.
Yep.
Big orchestral builds, big sonic waves of music that is just genius.
And it was almost like this new form of life to something that had been present for so long, right?
Absolutely. But if they ever tried it with Stairway to Heaven, I'd drop them immediately.
Oh, yeah. There are do's and don'ts, and you do them, But yeah, man. So leading on from that, and not so much leading on from that, it's still relevant to what we were talking about, but I wanted to touch on this for a little bit, man. You guys have been making, or you specifically, have been making music and performing music and doing all these things for quite some time. At the end of the day, when you sit back after a gig or a band practice or anything like that, anything music related, what do you see for yourself as the absolute end goal with music and your path in regards to music?
Now, this is something that I've been asking myself for a very long time.
Right.
It's something that's always been in the back of the head. You try to ignore it, but you can't, type of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want out of this. I would love, like, my dream is to perform, you know, it was originally 500 people, I smashed that. It was then 1,000 people, I smashed that. It was then 5,000 people, I've done it.
Yep.
It's those little goals that I was making for myself. I didn't have a giant outcome. Like I knew that I was never going to, you know, as a small town Rocky boy, statistically, I'm probably not going to reach Foo Fighters levels of people, or like Biffy Clyro, who are my absolute favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
I knew I was never going to be playing stadium rock shows like that, at least not by myself. And having those goals in mind, those goals have changed over the years. You know, I met my beautiful wife, who is absolutely the driving force behind my support system. You know, I have my parents, I have my brothers, you know, I have my family, but my wife is right there with me, you know, the whole step of the way. Unfortunately, most times she can't come to Rocky whenever I'm playing, but she's always, whenever she can, she's there, and she's always egging me on, supporting me. And my goal with that, I guess, was, you know, music. My ideas of musical goals has changed. You know, in 5 years, if you'd have asked me that 3 or 4 years ago, would have been, I'm going to be, you know, an absolute rock star.
Right.
Fast women, fast cars, doing the whole lot. Since I've met Joe, my goal in 5 years is to own a house.
Right.
You know, my goal is to be a father, you know, things like that.
So I want to ask then, because it's a very good point. Do you see at any point now then, because you said you've matured and things have changed and life will always be like that, right? Do you still see music being relevant in your life in
always.
10 years' time?
I am a musician.
To the extent that it is so.
I am a musician. And it's something that will always be a part of me.
Ingrained, right.
Yeah, it's not my entire personality, at least I hope. But
no, not at all.
It's definitely a huge part of who I am as a person. And I will always be performing. It doesn't matter to who. Yeah. You know, I'll always do a call into the GOAT whenever they ask. I will try and make the most that I can out of this career. My father took me aside, Phil McIntosh, he took me aside and said, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what he said.
Yeah, of course.
But it was along the lines of, you have to take this as far as you possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, my mother's endlessly supportive. She's, once again, a massive drive in my entire life. And I have amazing, incredible, wonderful, genius parents.
Yeah.
But they've always had that support of, we've heard you. We hear how good you are.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that as your parents. We're saying that as avid music listeners.
Yeah.
That you are as good as some of the people that we've heard.
Yeah.
Not to toot my own horn, but
yeah.
Toot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I agree with you, man. It is always different when you have people that are important in your life for specific roles prior to your individual talents, right? And when they see from the outside looking in without a stage of bias,
yeah,
it is a different type of driving force, right?
It's difficult for parents to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that in part, as much as I love them and respect what they have said, not just because it boosts your ego a little bit, but because they are my parents. And
yeah, of course.
Before everybody else that's important in my life, the three most important people in my life, aside from my brothers,
yeah,
my wife and my parents.
Yeah.
So it's hard for them to do that, but I also stop myself and go, yeah, but my father's a musician.
Yeah.
My mother may not be a musician anymore, but she was.
Yeah.
Even just singing in the choirs, she was a musician.
Yeah.
And that will always be a part of her. They're teachers, they're educators. So being unbiased is literally what their job is.
Yeah.
I'm able to trust that opinion now.
Yeah.
I don't just look at it and go, oh, yeah, you're just saying that because you're my mum.
So this is a really good segue, right? Because you said as parents, they are also educators. This is a really, really good segue because you now are a music educator.
Yes.
Right?
With two teachers as parents, what the fuck
Right.
else was I meant to do?
Exactly, man. It was destiny, right? So let's touch on that, man, because I personally actually don't know enough about it and would love to know more. What is your actual role?
So my actual role, I teach instruments to children. I'm an instrumental music teacher.
Right.
So that means I'm contracted to schools.
Right.
In Proserpine at this point. I live in Airlie Beach. Yeah, what a flex that is.
Yeah. What a flex.
I teach in Proserpine at two different schools. I primarily teach the guitar. A few years ago, I started learning the piano so I could teach it. So I teach the piano and I teach singing to children in Proserpine and Bowen at the moment. And my role basically is, or my goal, I guess, my role is to teach kids instruments, but my goal for that is to nurture their creativity. I went through high school music and I went through all of the rigmarole of music education through the AMEB and the ANZZA, CA rather.
Yep.
I went through all of those, things with the saxophone, with the guitar and things like that, and I realized how stressful it is.
Yeah.
To put that much pressure on children, some as young as 4 or 5, to not necessarily be perfect, but giving them this idea, if you comply, then you're good enough.
Right.
It's my sort of goal to teach that material because it's very important. I've changed my tune over the last few years. When I was about 21, I changed my tune to, okay, maybe music theory is more important than I think it is.
Yeah.
And started learning it myself. So I know that the material that I'm teaching these kids is really super important, but I don't want to stifle creativity.
Right.
Because I saw what had happened to Josh. Now, Josh is in a position in his life where music theory, to him, he associates it with stifling creativity. And he's absolutely right. I'm not going to tell him that he's wrong on that. Because in his world, that is exactly what it does. And in my world, in my head and through my own personal education, I've learned that music theory is so much more important than I used to think it is. But nurturing that creativity and giving them a safe space to do so, to actually enjoy their instrument and not just think, all right, this is something that I need to do exams for.
Yep.
For them to want to be a musician, for it to be ingrained in their person, just like it is for me, that is my ultimate goal.
Yep.
So while I teach the guitar, And while I teach music theory and while I teach the piano and singing and things like that, ultimately, it's my wish and my hope that these kids are actually getting more out of it than just me telling them, all right, this is a G note, play that.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the E minor scale and its relative is G major, things like that. I don't necessarily want those ideas to come through and overtake everything else in their brain, because it's so... Music theory is one of those things where you should know it, but it's not important. I got asked this a few months ago by my brother, and I showed him a video. Actually, I recommend checking out this video. It's a guy called Tyler Larson playing with Victor Wooten, who is one of the greatest bass players of all time. Right. And Tyler Larson plays this cracking guitar riff. Yep. And Victor Wooten basically goes into play something over the top and do stuff with his bass over this guitar riff. And Tyler Larson asked the question, as a music educator himself, he asked the question, so what sort of theory are you thinking of, if there's theory in it? And he said something that really resonated with me, which was, if you ask me a question, I'm not thinking, is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Right. Is it, I'm not thinking the theory of English, I'm thinking how I feel. Mm-hmm. So when you're playing music theory is a tool on the utility belt. Yeah. It's the spare tire in the back of the car. You hope you never have to use it, but it's there if you do. Yeah. Those are the values that I like to instill in my children. Not my personal children. I don't have any of those, but my students. Yeah, right. Now, how long is that something that you've been doing, like the teaching? Joe and I moved to early July last year, so it's still somewhat fresh. Yeah, it is relatively fresh. When I was 19, I taught the guitar, and in 2019, I taught the guitar on Fiverr. On Fiverr? Yes. I put out music lessons. Okay. So now I have to ask the question, because you've brought it up. Oh, great. Yeah, what have I done? Okay. No, this is really good. Have I created? Yeah. This is where the podcast gets really fun. So Fiverr is a really, really good example here, right? Now, Josh and I touched on the subjects of these new social media, new age platforms that are always popping up, everything like this. The OnlyFans, the TikTok, the Vine, whatever it is. It's all relevant to its space, right? Yeah. Now, Fiverr, for those of you that don't know, is a platform where you can basically, if you have a skill, sell it for a small price and help in return with, whatever it may be. For example, music lessons, right? Over Zoom calls, or whether it be writing I did music, mine whatever. Over Skype on my phone. Exactly. It was a disaster. Yeah. And I loved every second of it. Yeah. It was amazing. I used to charge my students $2.80. Right. Because that was the American equivalent of $5 at the time. Right. I thought I was super clever. It actually just came up as $2.80, and I thought, oh, well, So was this, if you don't mind me asking, this venture onto Fiverr, right, and using this platform, was this a successful venture for you? Absolutely not, but it was a huge amount of fun. It was successful for me, not financially and not, from a business sense. Yeah. Because I was putting a lot of effort into half-an-hour lessons with students. I had students in the US. I had students in Canada. So it wasn't successful for my sleep schedule. Yes. Because I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning teaching the guitar. But it was so much fun. Yeah. And I was able to network with a lot of incredible musicians who were just looking for some theory lessons or something like that. Right. And that's the thing too, when you have so many talented people that are using these platforms like that, it almost becomes your own little version of LinkedIn, right? Right? Because there are so many people that are also seeing this platform that is legitimately open to anyone and anything, right? There are people on there that can offer services on how to cook your own bread. There are people on there that can literally make you business cards. There is legitimately a guy, and I love this because it absolutely fucks with the economy. There is a guy who is offering to teach people how to build houses for something like $1,000 or something like that.
See, that's the thing, man. Like, again, we live in this day and age where the social media space, right, and these platforms, they run everything. Whether we see it that way or not, everything is connected to social media, right? You can get lessons on literally anything, hospitality, barista. These days, everything is on there.
Oh, yeah.
Right, all the way left to how to do CPR.
Yeah.
How to, you know what I mean? Everything. So Fiverr is a good example. It's one of those platforms. But you had mentioned this for a little bit, and I wanted to touch on it. You're also a Reddit user.
I was, yeah, for a long time. So throughout the last few months, I got rid of Reddit and Instagram, mainly
Instagram as well.
Yeah, for the amount of ads.
Okay.
The amount of just unfiltered adult content.
Really?
Yeah, which is, to be perfectly honest with you and perfectly frank, is not something that I am interested in consuming anymore.
Yes.
And just the amount of stupidity was just getting to me.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love Reddit to be so unfiltered and uncensored.
Yep.
And as much as, in 6 months, I might download the app again and start consuming the content that I was consuming, which was primarily music-related video games, because I'm a massive fan of video games, and movies and TV. I didn't use it for memes. I didn't use it for any of that sort of stuff. I did follow meme pages, which are always funny, but Reddit was always a tool for me.
Okay, yep, right.
Whereas Instagram, I found... I haven't deleted my Instagram, but I've just converted it to my dog's page now.
Right.
Baxter the puppy.
Right.
The bad man punted Baxter at Instagram.
Yeah. Really? Oh, that's brilliant. I love that.
I'm a huge fan of Anchorman. Joe's never seen it. My wife has never seen Anchorman, so anytime anybody in my family has Baxter around, the bad man punted Baxter, has no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, man. So
the bio is I ate the entire wheel of cheese.
Oh, right.
I have to find the YouTube clip to show her because it's just hilarious.
Yeah. I see. I use that reference all the time. I'm not mad. I'm actually impressed. Like, so that's awesome. That's really, really cool. Going back to what you were saying though, especially with Reddit being, this, it is very...
Oh, it is what it is. It's a cesspool.
Yeah. So I have very little knowledge of Reddit, and I said that to you before. For me, when I think Reddit, I think of a platform like Twitter, right? And I know it's very different. I know that all platforms in their own right are very different.
I can see where your understanding comes from there.
For me, Twitter is this platform where hashtags have this sub-thread and whatever else, and you can scroll through and whatever else, and there are individual communities, whatever else. Reddit is very similar in a sense, obviously, from my knowledge. But it's funny that you say that it's become this ad revenue advertisement platform, and there is this unfiltered level of whatever it may be, right? It's frustrating, man, because you look at the way that these platforms move in this day and age, right? TikTok has now become this trend of it's everywhere. Everyone's on TikTok, right? Josh and I had this conversation as well.
He mentioned me in that conversation because I'm just as addicted
exactly. This was the point. This is why I brought it up, right? So it's one of those things. But again, going back to what you were saying, it is very momentary, consumer based. Right?
It is.
It's
the same reason
Reddit,
Vine was so popular as well.
Right. So you're getting so much of this thing consistently at legitimately the click of a thumb on a smartphone. You do get to a point eventually where it's like, I just can't do it anymore, right? So you removed Instagram and stuff like that. Well, not removed Instagram, but you've redefined Instagram and stuff like that. I have to ask, what platforms do you use when it comes to things like music, gigs, and stuff like that? And do you find that there is a platform more specifically that suits you for that purpose?
Well, it certainly isn't OnlyFans.
I'm glad we covered that early, mate.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to convince someone though. It could work. It could work.
What, Music But Naked?
Music But Naked.
The creator of Music But Naked.
Naked, yeah. That's the other project. That's the after project.
That's the after party.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the fans of the OnlyFans account that subscribe, extra subscribe.
Exactly. But yeah.
No, I find that Facebook gets the point across in a place like Australia, which is so small.
Yes. Things
like Twitter are massive in America because it is so divided. And you've got media outlets like BuzzFeed is a big example.
Massive, yep.
Vice in Australia is one of them that are seeking. They come across as these fucking allies to civil rights movements like Black Lives Matter, Kill All Men movement.
Yeah,
those sort of things. They come across as these massive allies, but they're not. They're really seeking to further that divide to provide more clicks. That's the reason I hate that advertising idea, because things like Vice started off as taboo subjects becoming more talked about, which is something that
definitely.
I love. But nowadays it is, we should make Santa gender neutral. And I spoke to a couple of the trans people that I know, and they said, well, we just want to be our selected gender on a fucking license.
Yeah.
We want to have our gender as something that is frequently talked about. When they're furthering these divides to sell ad placement, that is when I find we begin to ignore the problem and talk about the problem for the problem's sake. It becomes the principle of how do we make money out of this?
Yeah.
So when it comes to Facebook, one of the things that I love about Facebook specifically, aside from all the horrible things that they have done, it gives you the chance to actually connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram is photos. Twitter is short little statements about things.
Yeah.
Facebook gives you the opportunity, for me at least, in my personal experience, I can't talk about anybody else, but from my personal experience, my brother lives in Sydney. And when we had phones that had credit, we couldn't talk to each other all the time. So
Facebook?
Was one of my favorites in high school. But when we could get on Messenger whenever we had internet service and talk to each other.
Yep.
Our family is so spread out across the east coast of Australia that talking through Facebook is one of the only ways that we really have nowadays.
Yeah.
And there are people from high school that I'm running into on Facebook going, oh shit, how are you?
Right.
Which is great. And Facebook has become our main form of advertisement for music.
Yes.
We don't boost post because, like you mentioned this outside, which is something that I only learned just recently as well, is the Facebook, what is it called? Algorithm.
The algorithm.
It limits you.
The organic reach.
Yeah.
So, yes.
To continue feeding money, which is something that I personally have never been able to agree with.
Yes, I agree with you there. And I've actually been quite vocal about this too. I think the most disheartening thing for me personally, and I think a lot of people will be able to agree with me on this, and especially if they're going through similar things, right? As an independent artist, someone from a small town, or at least from my perspective where I was coming from, it right, I didn't live in a town where I could go to a uni and study music. I didn't go to a school that offered me education on how to promote and sell my brand or invest the education into marketing these things.
I was very lucky to have those options handed to me.
Right. So then you develop these things like I did for myself, which is this ability to present something in a way in which people will then be attracted and interact. Facebook was one of those platforms where it's simple, it's free, it's easy to use. Everyone also has access to Facebook, right? It is worldwide.
And it's one of those platforms. It's one of those platforms where I do actually appreciate a little bit of censorship.
Yes.
Because there are so many children on there.
Yes.
And as an educator, I would not be doing my job if I could ever let any child, whether they're my student or not, any child into a situation where I know it could be dangerous. And I know that cyberbullying is happening.
Absolutely.
But the fact that we can censor so much stuff that really is inappropriate for kids. You know, and I'm not talking nipples on Instagram. That I couldn't give a fucking rat's ass.
Yeah.
It's violent, blatantly racist, blatantly homophobic, blatantly horrible things, hateful things that I don't think... I think that if they were interested in sort of researching those opinions, not
having
necessarily
the
following
educated
those
standpoint.
opinions,
Yeah.
but researching those opinions and looking for those opinions, they need to look for them.
Yeah.
But the problem is, just like everything else, and I know that most people that I speak to, at least about this, it's the fact that porn infiltrates everything.
Everything, because sex sells.
If we got rid of all the porn on the internet, to quote Dr. Cox from Scrubs, if we got rid of all the porn on the internet, there would be one website left saying, bring back all the porn.
Yes, yeah.
Because it is absolutely everywhere.
Yes. On every platform.
On every single platform.
Yes.
It's part of the reason, because it's caused so many problems for me, you know, with my tendencies of consuming literally whatever is shown to me.
Yeah.
That it comes to a point, like with Reddit, like with Instagram, in certain cases, like I had a Twitter, I don't think I've used it for fucking yonks, but it was there and I got rid of it.
So
because it caused so many issues for me personally in my life. I just went, you know what? No, fuck it. I'm getting rid of it.
Yeah. So I do want to go back to the Facebook thing, but first and foremost, I do want to just touch on this because Josh and I didn't get to, and I'm so glad you brought this up, especially with the porn thing. Now, I'd said last time Twitter was this platform that was new to me, right? It was something that I'd been not using frequently, but more so now in this day and age where with a project like this, where the whole goal is the engagement for people to learn more about my guests. Twitter is the perfect space, especially in this cyber age.
It is.
However, every time I load up Twitter, because of the time frames and time zones and everything else, and the world rotates in the way it does, right? They're running on different schedules than we are. But it could be 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'll be having a coffee and checking my phone, and I open Twitter, and it is porn.
Yeah.
Blatant thread
because
after
it's
thread
advertised on Twitter. So here's a little tidbit. I noticed this when you were talking about OnlyFans with Josh. Now, OnlyFans did not start as porn.
Right.
It never started as pornography. I was on Twitter in the dawn of OnlyFans, and what it was a way for Twitter creators to charge for their content.
Right.
Not adult content specifically.
Yep.
It got inundated by porn stars originally who went, well, if I'm going to be showing my gooch on Twitter, I may as well charge for it.
Make some money.
So now there's a platform called Patreon.
Right. Yep.
And Patreon is a lot more for creators.
Yes.
It was a great way for YouTubers to make money when the adpocalypse happened in 2016.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great way for people to then charge a monthly subscription for content that you wouldn't otherwise see.
Right.
OnlyFans has been taken over by the adult community, which is great. Get yours, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I by all means do whatever you want. But Patreon has got porn on it as well. Everything's got porn on it. But
well, there was a time when Tumblr was porn, and it was flooded with porn. Do you remember?
Then there was the one Tumblr page that said, bring back all the porn. Porn is the internet. It's gotten to the point now, this has been the case for fucking 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, since the 70s. Any big technological advance, be it a new monitor, you know, a new streaming service, anything like that gets tested by pornography. If pornography uses that that particular piece of technology or that particular recording style or anything like that, it becomes the industry standard because it is so widely consumed.
Yeah.
Now, as much as I've had my troubles with porn in the past, I think maybe not most men, but a lot of men have. Moving through that in the industry that yourself and myself work in, being very social media based,
right,
for a start, being in an entertainment industry, that industry standard is set by something that nowadays I don't agree with.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is unfortunate.
Yep.
I don't have a problem with people watching porn. I think if you're willing to
you
consume it, go for it.
Absolutely.
I don't anymore. I try to avoid it as much as possible. But it's hard to come to terms with the fact that the industry that I love so much is dictated by something that I hate.
Yeah.
It's like being a patriot in America but hating Donald Trump.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those sort of situations. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I will never stop doing it.
Yep.
You know, it is my ultimate dream that is coming true right in front of my eyes, and it has been for the last fucking 10 years.
Yep.
But it is the standards that we record with, the standards that are used to film music videos and behind the scenes and stuff like that, is all set by something that is, in my opinion, quite violent.
Yeah.
It's hard to cope with, unfortunately.
I think it is also like a realization that not everything is as we see it from the outside before we get in, right? Because we look at it when you come from this perspective of that is a goal for me, you look at it and you see this pure thing that you're approaching and you're chasing and you're working towards. And then you get there and you taste it and you also have that small taste of the not so savory side, right? And it's that realization of this also comes with this line.
Bittersweet.
Yeah.
It's one of those situations of like you get to a point and you wonder about the journeys that you chose to miss.
Right.
To quote, can't remember his name, Glenn something or other, he wrote a phenomenal song called I Need an Energy, which is a brilliant song. He's going through this point of, I got there, but what did it cost?
Right.
You know, this is something that I love. This is something that I want. This is something that I need to do.
Yeah.
Because as musicians, we need to play music. When there's no music left, that's when you give up. Some people die without ever having music gone from them. But he's talking about something that isn't very often spoken about, which is, what did I give up?
Yeah.
To get to the point where, or how do I stop myself from blaming myself for the things that I chose to ignore or chose to miss? Yeah.
Which is great, and it is a great summary of that. Like, you know, so like I said before, I do want to go back to this note because I have a couple of things that I want to branch onto for you to sort of speak about.
I am the tangent king.
No, that's perfect. That's why we're here, funnily enough. But touching back on the Facebook thing, one of the most disheartening things for me specifically was that, like I said, when you're in a situation where that is potentially a tool for you to reach those goals that you are setting for yourselves, right? I always found it really disheartening as a young entertainer, right? Let's not just look at it as a musician, because I don't really look at it as I'm just a musician. And this also covers your question that you'd asked a couple of days ago. I have a very creative mindset in the sense of I would love to be able to create these things that not only develop my talent and passion for the things that I am interested in, but also create platforms that allow me to help and promote the growth of other people that I too am a fan of. Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like I said to you, I first and foremost am a fan. This podcast is the perfect example.
Well, in that case, subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Exactly. Yes, but no. So, you know, and you take something like Facebook, right? Which realistically, when you take the negative things aside, it's the perfect platform, right? You have the world in this cyberspace at your fingertips where you can post links, you can post photos, you can post everything that will help you and benefit you. Now, the problem that I have is that as a young artist who legitimately spends years to build up this platform and the numbers that you reach building this platform over the years, to put in all of that work for so many years and then have it cut purely because the company that runs the platform you're using wants more money. It's very disheartening. And I think that when a young artist has to pay a platform money to reach the reach the fans that they have naturally reached for their talent, I think it's disgusting personally.
Oh, it is blatant rape of the industry.
Absolutely. And look, again, it's not even just for musicians. This goes for streamers.
This is the entertainment industry.
Absolutely.
This is film and TV.
As a whole.
It infiltrates every aspect of your life.
Yep.
And working in the entertainment industry is not what it used to be. Most of your time is not spent perfecting your instrument, perfecting your craft. You're not standing in front of the mirror telling jokes or doing magic tricks anymore. You are sitting behind a computer trying your hardest to reach that one extra person.
Right.
When you can't, because someone limits it, not naming any names, Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
When someone is limiting it because they want to buy a second solid gold Humvee,
Yes.
it's just disheartening. And it's heartbreaking, but there is literally nothing that I can do about it at this current moment.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that is the case. I think it is a very, very bittersweet reality that the problem that lies in that is, especially for someone like myself who lived in a rural town, right? When I was performing with my group and we were, traveling and touring and doing all these things, Facebook was perfect because when we were live, we would get off stage and we would go to talk to the people that were there that enjoyed our stuff, and they'd say, hey, what's your Facebook page so that we can follow you and stay up to date with the music you release and watch your updates from shows that we can't make, right? Yeah. When you're performing in Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne and we can't travel from Emerald or Moranbah or these tiny little towns, we'd still love to be able to stay up to date with that, right?
Yeah.
Now, these are not people from my hometown. These are not people that have the know-it-all of, well, Chris is traveling again next week. He's going to be doing another show because I've spoken to this person who knows him. Or
so the Zach Cross band gets that a lot. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
The Zach Cross band gets that a lot whenever we perform out west for like the Springshaw, the Springshaw Camp Draft that we just played a few weeks ago, and the Barcaldine Festival. There are people coming in from
my hometown,
Barcaldine.
Yeah.
It's a shitty long range.
How dare you?
Oh, mate, I come from Rocky.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about that place. I will always love it.
But yes, continue.
There are people coming out from Winton, and there's people coming from Longreach to Barkey to go to this festival. They see us, they go, right, cool, so we live in Longreach. Do you ever play out in Longreach? Yes. Well, if you follow the band page,
then you'll be updated.
We'll tell you exactly when we're playing at the Birdcage. We'll tell you exactly when we're going into Emerald to play. We booked a gig. We booked a gig in Gladstone for the first time at the Rocky Glen, which has always been like a safe haven for Rockhampton musicians to travel to Gladstone to play the Rocky Glen.
Right.
Because it always draws a crowd. There's always people interested in listening to that music. There's always people interested in going out and watching live music. So for us to book the Rocky Glen is also a bit of a milestone because we played Big Beer Fest and we played to 4,500 people.
Yeah.
2,000 of whom were dancing, which is probably not COVID safe. But we smashed that milestone.
Yeah.
And we get to go to the Rocky Glen. We got into the Western next week. It's been one of our goals to not just play the Western just because. It was a goal for us because it's a country music haven in Rockhampton. Right. While we got the gig, it meant so much more to us than just, we can play at another venue. It was going, we have people who are begging us on our Facebook page to, you should come to the Western. You guys will kill at the Western. You'll play after a PBR. You'll go absolutely off. We get the chance to do that. We get the chance to see what people are telling us and then go, okay, so what you're saying, we are going to do. It's nuts. There is no better feeling, for me at least, to have fans tell me, come to Brazil.
Right.
And then you go to Brazil. You know, that is the ultimate goal. I'm going to change my answer. That is my goal.
There you go.
Is to be able to have fans tell me what they want me to do. And for me to go, done. You know what? I will. Because you were there supporting me, I'm going to support what you want.
I think that is why it's so frustrating for me with these platforms, because then you have issues where these things happen, right? These people are asking to see you guys play live, and you go, well, follow our page so we can keep you updated. But then Facebook's cutting that. And those people that are asking you miss out because they're not having your updates pushed to their feed anymore because you guys aren't feeding the machine that is. That was the issue that I had with it.
It's kind of like a poker machine, isn't it? The plan is the more money you put in, the more money you take out. But unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. Even if you do succeed with it, you're not getting anything out of it. You're reaching a few hundred people who aren't really interested.
It's this continuous vicious cycle. And and unfortunately, look, this podcast, in our opinion, is not going to change that. We know that. But
it has the potential to, and that's why I think it matters.
And it does matter because, I think people like yourself, people like Josh, people like Denver are a really, really good example for this, right? When I go to the GOAT as a patron, when I go to a venue in general as a patron to listen to live music, and I see someone performing live music, and I genuinely like their performance, and I think, these guys are phenomenal. I want to follow them. I want to be updated so I can continue to support them. I enjoy their stuff. Therefore, I want to consume it. If I'm going out of my way to like your Facebook page, right, I should then be at least given the opportunity to have your post reach my feed without you having to pay for it. Right?
You've selected to consume that content.
That's my point.
Why can't you consume it?
And then on the other hand, you as the artist who has put in all this time to build this following, build this fan base and reach the numbers that you have, you've done all of this work for nothing. For 15%, because that's what you're being allowed unless you funnel money back in. Again, that's the frustrating part for me.
They still... This isn't one of those situations where you can put money into it once. They sort of channel it. And then you put money in and you get your wider audience. This is something that is continuous. It reaches different people each time you put money in.
Correct.
When I was reading about this, interestingly enough, it was a Reddit page that I read about this on. It was, when I was reading about this, once again, from Reddit, take it with a grain of salt. But it absolutely enthralled me. I was pissed off, but also a little bit more relieved. Because I knew now, every time Zach or myself puts $25 into the Facebook poker machine, we understand now why we're not getting... We've got... Our reached people has gone phenomenally high. But the interaction isn't there. Because the people who genuinely want to see us, the people who want to interact with our shit, aren't getting to see it. Our interactions are going out off the charts. People are people are consuming our content, great, but they're the people who aren't interested. They're the people like me and my wife, before we go to bed, just sitting on Facebook videos and just scrolling.
Right. Yes. Absolutely.
It's one of those situations, I think.
So in a roundabout way of closing this specific topic off, and more than likely wrapping up this episode soon, because we've been chatting for quite some time, I want to quickly ask you, and this is something that I specifically wanted to ask you, because I want your opinion on it, right?
Absolutely.
Now, social media, again, is a really good opening to this segue, because social media is one of those things where if you can think of it, it's out there. Video apps, photo apps, posting apps, all of these things, right? You have this broad spectrum. Then you take a look at the other side of things, like streaming. You have Mixer. You have Twitch. You have YouTube. Now you have Facebook Gaming, right? We're not going to touch on that specific part too much, right? But then you look at the perspective of music, and you have Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, all these things. I want to take it back a step further again, right? We came from the age of Bandcamp, SoundCloud, things like that, right? In this
Bandicoot and stuff like that.
Exactly, right. In this day and age, do you see apps, we use the term apps, like Bandcamp, SoundCloud, still being viable for young independent artists or even upcoming artists?
Relatively, because it's still being consumed. But the age of SoundCloud rappers is now over, and it's been taken over by TikTok rappers. That is something that I followed very closely, not just because I'm a massive fan of Post Malone, but it's a lot of those careers I was watching for a while. Not from a sense that I could be the best producer for these guys. No. It was because I was genuinely interested in how it worked. I never put anything up on SoundCloud. I never had the balls to.
Yeah.
This is the reason why I've never released any of my own music. In part, first off, because I've never written anything.
Yeah.
And secondly, because even if I did write something, I do not have the balls to post it, not to have negative criticism, but I'm afraid that my ego will take over when I'm given constructive criticism.
Right.
SoundCloud was always a good opportunity for that because you could release it anonymously.
Yes.
Bandcamp, you had to attach something to it, but with SoundCloud, it was genius. It was a genius business model, but it got taken and bastardized by people who used it specifically not to get their message out there. It was used as, I want to make $1 million really, really quickly.
Yep.
How do I do that?
Yep.
Right, I've listened to all the songs on the algorithm. I know what to write about. I know the sort of beat that I need to do, and I know how fast I need to rap.
Absolutely.
Once you get that formula, it's quite easy to make the money.
Yeah. Yeah.
But once again, it's one of those situations. It's like boobs in the thumbnail on YouTube.
Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
It's one of those situations where you have to play the algorithm for what it is. But now the algorithm changes on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah.
You don't get the opportunity to look into it as much.
Right.
Because the algorithm changes now that there's so many content creators out there that everybody gets a fair go.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why I like TikTok.
Yeah.
They don't limit what can go on the FYP. They don't limit what goes on, on the head pages. It works on an algorithm. If I watch a shitload of sea shanty videos, I know that my FYP is going to have a bunch of shanty videos.
Yes.
But people who consume this content also watch this. Maybe you're interested in that.
Correct. Yeah.
For a week, a solid week, I was getting nothing but Dungeons and Dragons content.
Yep.
Not that I play Dungeons and Dragons anymore. I wish I did. I love that game. But I was getting nothing but Dungeons and Dragons content because I followed a page called Outside Xbox, which is a YouTube a YouTube channel that I watch quite regularly.
Yep.
I followed them. They have this whole dedicated D&D following.
Yep.
And I was receiving nothing but Dungeons & Dragons TikToks. Things that had, 1.8 million likes. And then you scroll to the next video, it had 3. It gave an equal opportunity. It's like Joe Rogan's podcast. He gives an equal opportunity to everybody to express their opinions. TikTok is one of those genius platforms, but it's still a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is still a company.
Yep.
And that means that they can and probably will censor whatever they want. TikTok still make money.
Yeah.
Because they've never had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
They censor nudity because they should.
Agreed.
They censor violence because they should.
Agreed.
You know, all of those things are censored because that's just the rules of social media.
Absolutely.
But they don't censor people. They shadow ban everybody, which is a thing where they can't post stuff.
Yeah, right.
If they say something that they don't like. They censor
breaches
swearing.
terms and service, correct.
They censor swearing and shit like that. Once again, rules of social media, I mean, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But you hear it all the time now. Oh, this one blew up, but this one flopped. And you're going, yeah, but did it? Because you didn't play the algorithm at that specific point.
Right.
That your content is now no longer relevant.
Right.
You've had your 6 seconds of Vine fame.
Yeah.
Now it's time to move on.
Yep.
So it's one of those situations. SoundCloud is probably what TikTok was looking to become when it started as Musical.ly.
Yep.
But I don't know. When you limit things, when you limit art, you're losing the point of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Now, mate, I wanted to firstly say thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me.
This conversation has been phenomenal. It will not be the last time that you are on the podcast for sure.
Wonderful.
But before we wrap up, I feel like it would be rude to not try the snack. Right?
Of course.
Shall we open a
You've
packet
never had an
and have
Oreo
one?
before.
No.
Oh, let me educate you, Chris.
No. So what I will get you to do, mate, while you open that, I would like you to, big boy voice, plug any and all information on your bands, projects, anything that you have coming up. I want you to give us every and all bit of information that you would like to share in regards to music, projects, tours, performances. The floor is yours, mate.
So, sorry, I'll move that over to
No.
area a little bit more. Right. The Zach Cross Band is performing pretty much every weekend. Next weekend, next Saturday, we're at the Great Western Hotel in Rockhampton. And then we have 2 nights out at the Birdcage in Longreach in June. Myself, I will be performing at the Goat intermittently between then. So always come down and say g'day if you'd like. And the 16s, unfortunately, we haven't got anything in the midst at the moment. We're going to be talking a little bit more over the next few months, just about opportunities and things like that for what we can do. And follow the Zach Cross Band on Facebook. We're very interactive with our followers, and we're very active with releasing content.
And of course, as always, guys, all of Christian's links will be in the video description down below. So make sure to get behind him and support him. Mate, thank you so much for stopping by the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, mate. It was a blast. Thank you, guys. Make sure to tune in next week for episode 3 when we have another special guest. Again, thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of the Midnight Snack podcast. Thank you again, mate.
Thank you.
Enjoy, guys.